This is the second BoatCast. If anyone's wondering, the first BoatCast I did probably over a year ago with Tex, and then as most like podcasts or anything I do in general, I just fizzle out. Don't have a schedule. I can't stick to a streaming schedule. I'm inconsistent. I just do it for fun. But I've been meaning to just want to talk to my buddy Tim. We've just made this Mafia video, so I want to talk about that. And he's got some interesting shit. So this is Tim. Tim, say
Hello.
something about yourself.
Hey, how y'all doing? Oh shit.
No one's there. Just talk about yourself.
Okay. Well, there's not much to say right now. I work as a trucker right now. Small Isuzu, so nothing too special, and I do in-state deliveries. But I like video games, and I like talking about video games. Problem is this. So here, I just want to start off with a thing. Like when it comes to older people, and like in general, do you not like tell them you play video games unless they mention them first in a way not to sound like a spaz?
Yeah, I wouldn't dare talk about video games around like for example the cremator. I've never even thought about talking about video games to the 6-year-old cremator at my work. I've never been like, hey man, video games, because it's just I would be embarrassed too. That's us being a nerdy spaz playing video games.
Exactly. It's like, so I'm glad I'm not the only one where it's like you just have this feeling where it's like you know they're gonna be like, oh wow, this kid's useless, because there's so many things where it's like, what do you like to do for fun? It's like I never mention video games unless everybody else does. If only one person mentions it and they look like the fat dork, I'm like, okay, I'm not mentioning video games.
I haven't had that stage of a job for a while because I've just worked like with such a small team. But now you're bringing me back to that. Yeah, I think I would always say that. Yeah, I just play video games, and like I'd probably lie, but like, oh yeah, I just agree with what they play probably. But then like never drop a gamer tag.
They're like, I like to work on cars. I like to cook. I'm a hiker. I'm a camper. And then there's the other guy. I play video games. It's like, oof.
Well, that's just no one's gonna work on cars anymore. They're only gonna work on cars and video games. At this, it's gonna eventually come to that. I don't know.
Yeah,
not necessarily. There's always going to be those fucking gearheads. I want to go out there and work with my hands, but I don't know. Well, I think we'll be fine. But video games are definitely becoming more popular and making kids dumber.
Yeah, or either that, making them all really good at like understanding how things work. Because of Czar, who's a mutual friend of ours.
Anyone listening to this probably knows Czar at this point. If they're going out their way to listen to this, then they're deep into the boat bomber lore.
So hopefully, they know the Czar man. My introduction to My Summer Car was through Czar.
That game, yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap! This game is just like an actual building simulator for a vehicle, or like the gasket can explode and shit like that. And I'm like, wow, how intricate is it going to get? Like, I've watched a few people talk about it recently since then.
Yeah, there's so many games like that. I can't even think of another example, but it is getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. There is a game called House Flipper. I was a plumber for 5 years, and there's this game called House Flipper, and it doesn't do the tedium of plumbing justice. Like, when I was watching it, I was like, I wish it was that simple.
Oh, yeah. They streamlined it.
Yeah, they made the plumbing super easy, where it's like you don't need to worry about like installing pipes or anything. You just have it like come out here, and then you set the toilet or the sink on top of the fixtures and shit. Or no, not fixtures. Darn, I've been off of plumbing for a while.
Oh, you're not a real plumber.
Yeah, I've been off it for a while. Stops, the stops and the studs and all that shit.
Well, the more interesting job you have, I mean, unless you want to go into your crawl space stuff before you go into the woods.
There is a raccoon. Yeah.
Oh, what would you fight a raccoon? What tool did you use to bash his head in?
Oh shit. Okay, all I had with me was a crimper.
What's a crimper? I don't know what a crimper is. I'm a fucking idiot.
Okay, so PEX rings. Have you seen those plastic water pipes that run through walls or under the floor?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So those are called PEX, and they'll usually have like a plastic hard fitting that you slide them over, and then you have these copper rings or brass rings, and you set them over the ends over the fittings, and then you take this tool that's like a pair of pliers that is very circular on the end, so it perfectly fits over the copper ring, and it forces the copper ring to compress. And that's a crimper, really. And it can be a little weighty. Yeah, so it was like this guy was having his sink redone, and it was like some trashy trailer park kind of place. And I got underneath this house, and the first thing I noticed was there's just like shreds of McDonald's memorabilia everywhere, like burger wrappers, fry cups.
Well, I'm sorry when I interrupt you when you said memorabilia. I was imagining like the toys and like some hats and stuff, but you just had to say memorabilia. But okay, continue.
Yeah, shit. When my ex was out of the country for a while, I sent her I took a McDonald's wrapper, and as a form of like American resemblance, because she was going to be out of the country for like a month, I wrote the "Oh say can you see" on a McDonald's wrapper and folded it and put it in an envelope and sent it to her, and that's all I sent.
Didn't even put it. You should have sent her a cheeseburger in the mail. Experiment.
Yeah, it's like here's something to remind you of America. But yeah, so it's like all these wrappers and cups and
McDonald's memorabilia.
absolute McDonald's memorabilia, and it was just everywhere. And I crawl underneath, and I'm getting kind of nervous because usually when you see this much food stuff, there's an animal that's responsible for it. And so I'm working underneath this kitchen, and then I hear like and I like sit up with my headlamp, and I'm looking around, and I see these two eyes, and it was a really shitty crawl space. Like it went down and up, like it was not flat, and it was like sort of downhill from where I was at underneath this house. And there's these two eyes just glaring at me, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." And so I rearranged myself so my legs are in the direction of the eyes, and then I have this crimper, and I'm just like holding on to it the whole time, making eye contact with this thing, hoping that it doesn't decide that it's going to attack me. It moved a few times and it hustled like to different parts of the crawl space, but thankfully it didn't actually ever give me rabies or anything like that. But yeah,
you just did your thing with it, and on the perimeter.
Yep, just did my thing with it on the perimeter.
Oh man,
there was another house I went underneath that was like. It was a new house, brand new house. And one of the things they do with newer houses is when they dig the crawl space, they like tarp it with like black plastic garbage bag material, and it's like and I don't know why they do it. Actually, I've never asked, and I'm sure it's to like keep the groundwater or something out, or I don't understand. But as a result of the crawl spaces being completely tarped, water that rains, because before they put the flooring in, and so it's like it's still an open roof, it's still just studs and walls, and then a downpour of snow or rain, and then it melts, and then it's just a swamp underneath the house. And so this house was finished, it was carpeted, it was ready to go, and it just had about like a foot of water underneath it that the homeowners, well, nobody bought this house yet, I guess, because it was still brand new, but it was just a foot deep. And so I went in it with a frog suit and my tools.
Frogs.
And yeah, this is like a wetsuit.
Yeah, I figured that's what it was, but I just laughed at the name. Yeah, I'm just obnoxious, and I just gotta say the thing that made me laugh. Frog suit.
Frog suit. I don't know where that term came from. I know in the 50s we used the slang frog men for like soldiers that were trained in like underwater demolition. Maybe that was older or something. But yeah, so there's this I got down there, and there's like, I'm not kidding, it was a literal functional swamp. There was bugs, there was plant life, and the best part was there was frogs. They had frogs underneath their house. And I was like, "Boss, there's frogs down here." And it was like I was in Banjo and Kazooie Bubble Goop Swamp, because it was like no black ceiling, plants everywhere growing up the studs. It was like it's poor logistical planning. That's the problem. So I'm just gonna dox what state I live in. I live in Idaho.
Ooh.
And Idaho is a fast growing state, and the housing market as a result is being absolutely trashed. And now my cheap ass home is worth 3 times it was once. And if you want to buy a new house or move somewhere, it's not going to be cheap. Like everywhere in the state's going up, and people are still moving in. I remember when I was in trade school, they said it was 500 new residents a day in just one town alone. And I was like, holy fucking shit. How do we stay on top of that? Right. Oh, sorry. What's the swearing?
The swearing.
Do we care?
Well, are you making a reference to the new like thing? It's like, I think it's like within the first 18 seconds or some shit. You can't say fuck or whatever. But I don't. The channel's not even monetized that I'm putting it on, so I don't. Yeah, this ain't as they would always like, someone would always like cuss like, "Oh, is this radio? We can't." I thought you're not pulling one of those. Are you legitimately concerned, Tim?
I was concerned there for a sec because I was like, I know I've already probably said shit.
Right? Have you seen my streams? I'm ruthless. I'm cutting edge.
You are the new rebel radio or whatever. Yeah, shit. Yeah, it was just a functional swamp down there. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Tea bottles are always awesome to come across when you're underneath the house.
I piss in a lot of bottles before driving in my van. Yeah. Sometimes it just happens, man.
It's like you're doing some industrial building like a gym or something like that, and you're really, really, really far away from the crawl space entrance, and it's just you and your headlamp, and then you're looking around underneath all the insulation and shit, and you see like a couple of yellow jugs, and you're like, yep.
Piss jugs. But I just want to clarify, because most people might know that I'm not just driving around in a van pissing. It's my work van, Sometimes, one time I got stuck in traffic and like actually it was like a standstill, so I went in the back with the bottle and did it, because it's kind of hard to do it if you're like in the van, because you kind of have to like angle and shit. Like I've done it while driving before, ain't gonna lie, but sometimes you just don't want to stop. But I always respectfully throw them away. I don't throw them out the window.
Thank you. The world appreciates.
Actually, that might be a lie. I've probably done it once or twice, especially if they were kind of messy. Anyway, TMI, but continue. We're talking about piss jugs. I just wanted, I heard piss jugs. I didn't want to, sit back and act innocent. I've probably contributed to piss jugs, Tim. I'm sorry, but not under a house. So I'm not responsible for these ones in particular.
Oh, thank you. Now, so staying on the subject of piss jugs, and actually we could use this as a transfer. Oh. So I used to work as a camp ranger. Yeah. So I was a contractor.
That's the one I wanted to hear about.
I was contracted by a camp to work as facilities management, do roads, do repairs, help with like invasive species. I did all sorts of stuff, and the best part was I got to interact with like rangers and search and rescue guys and paramedics and firefighters. It was the best job I ever had without having to be a government agent, pretty much. We did like flags in the morning, and it was a lot of like. They were just really awesome guys, and I have so many stories.
And you got to live there too.
Yes, I'd lived there for 4 months straight at a time every season, and I worked 12 seasons on and off, and I kind of became the old guy by the end. And as a result, everybody that were my friends for the longest time had moved on to other parks, because when you're an actual ranger, you don't have any control where you go. It's they kind of just tell you where you go, kind of thing. So like my friends will like disappear, go, and they get like put in like New Jersey. One of them worked in a park in New Jersey where their main attraction was wild horses, which is and it wasn't a very big park, and it was we
got horses.
Yeah, they got wild horses, and of course horses aren't indigenous to the United States. Like they're never meant to be here, or either that they got bumped off and the system repaired without them or something like that. One way or the other, these horses were not native to this area, but because they became wild again and formed a herd, some group decided to make this a park. And apparently every group of rangers that works at this park, they hate it, because it's like, they're just horses and they're not supposed to be here. I forgot they came up with a pretty vulgar slang to refer to the horses. I think it was like prairie rodents or something like that.
Prairie rodent? You prairie rodent?
You dirty prairie rodents. And I had this one friend, Joey. I'm sure I can get away with saying his first name. Yeah? Should I change it to John?
I don't know what he did. Let's hear.
Okay, so Joey, he didn't do anything there. There's another story where he got. I shouldn't bring it up if I'm bringing up his name.
No. But oh no, he got busted molesting a koala or something.
No,
the wrong part.
Yellowstone tried to hold him responsible for a grizzly bear getting killed.
I'm sorry to go on to this, but did he bring the koala in himself? I mean, I don't imagine koalas where you were at.
No, there's no koala. I wonder what Australian park rangers have to deal with now that you mentioned that. But
what I just said, they probably have to deal with that.
Yeah, they got to deal with koalas sticking things in their pouches and acting degenerate. But so Joey was working at this park in New Jersey, and every park, when you're new there, they have like an orientation for the rangers, and it's like, yeah, welcome to our park, you're gonna like it here, yada yada yada. And this one had a slideshow set up And they're going through the slides. They're like, yeah, here's our main attractions. Here's things you got to look out for. And then on like the slides for things you got to look out for, they're like, and here's a big one. And they change the slide, and it's like some old blonde, like probably like in her 40s, blonde woman, like putting a man in a headlock. And they're like, this woman you got to look out for. This lady in particular, she used to work at this park, and she was a ranger. But she's like also one of those. She's like a crazy horse lady. Like she is obsessed with horses, and she's so obsessed with horses that she will like attack tourists if she thinks they were like upsetting them in any way. Where she's like, "You're disturbing the horses," and then she'll like pull full law authority and like try to handcuff them or whatever. And just
so she goes around the park handcuffed, or no, not you meant headlocking. That's what I was like initially. She said she was doing, so she's just headlocking people for not liking horses.
No, like they're she put like
a rogue ex-worker just comes back and just causes trouble.
And so she bought a house on the perimeter of the park.
Oh, jeez.
Because they're like, sorry, you gotta go. And she was like, fine. And she packed her bags and left. But she was so attached to the park that she bought like some rinky-dink property and slapped a trailer home on it. And then she'd sneak in every day and play like ranger still, where she'll like see people like getting too close to the horses, and she'd run out of the bushes like, get from them! And she'll like, as I said, like in the photograph, she has a guy in a headlock. She's like yelling for like some ranger to help detain this guy. And so whenever she's seen, it's like keep an eye on her, make sure she's not doing anything, and tell her to leave. You know.
I can't get off of it. I'm just imagining this like a buff ass lady running around. Like this kid just saying like, I can't just like, man, horses are gay, and this buff lady comes in over and clotheslines the kid,
tackles the kid. Take that back.
Don't torture horses.
But like, so all the horses, because they had a pretty small catalog. It was like they had like 57 or something horses around there. They all had like numbers applied to them based on like their generation and what year they were born or something like that. And so it's like, oh, that horse is like 1 to B7 or something. But instead, when she worked there, she named every single one of them, and some of those names have stuck. But the Rangers have taken the names and have bastardized them. So like she'd like called one of them like Tato Chip, but instead they call him like Shit Chip or something. That's one of the more ridiculous things I've heard of. I don't think I've heard of a park that interesting besides that one. But as I said, it's only like 100 or so acres. It's not very big at all.
One thing I could relate to, you told me when you would pick people up that like walked out too far or something.
I worked with one of the things I was contracted to do is I drive around guides, and they're actually, their term they used was instructor. Or no, sorry, part of my mouth is failing me today. Instructor. They'd call themselves instructors. And the reason why was if you called yourself a guide, then people will be like, oh, you work for me. But if you call yourself an instructor, it gives you authority so that people don't just tell you what to do. And so there were these instructors would take people out on week-long treks. My freaking mouth. What the fuck? Week-long treks. Yeah.
He's tricking these assholes.
Tricking them all the way through the park. And just, it's the first podcast I've ever done, and my mouth is just failing me. So they take them on treks through the park. They'll start in like Pelican Bay, and they'll end up near like Veronica Gulch or something. It's just these week-long. I'd pick them up usually at their finished destination or drop them off at their beginning. And I'll just tell the story. And
something I could just really tell, the part that I could really relate to. I remember you just said you got numb to the drive.
Yeah, exactly. So driving through Yellowstone, I'm sure a few of the listeners may have been to the park, but there's one place called Hayden Valley, and I hate it with every fiber of my being because it takes me at least an hour to get through it every time. And the reason why, and it's an 18-minute drive. It's only 20 miles. But it takes you an hour because there's people braking for bison. There are people braking in the middle of the road. You're supposed to use a turnoff. That's what all the signs say. Is like, if you're going to stop, use a turnoff. You're breaking the law if you don't use a turnoff. And so these frickin' people, they'll see a bison and they'll just slam their brakes in the middle of the road and go, oh, a bison! And they'll start taking pictures of that sucker. And you're on the road and you're behind them. And sadly, because I'm a contractor, a lot of the times I don't actually have an official vehicle. I'm just driving like a van. Oh, yeah. No, I'd be driving a van, especially if I was picking people up. I was being contracted to go and pick up a bunch of people. So it'd be usually a marked van that owns the company that owns the van. But more often than not, sometimes it was just a big white van with a bumper sticker with a smiley face that says "Have a nice day." But I would get so impatient in Hayden Valley because there's people who do it right all the time. There's people who use pull-offs, but then there's these jerks that decide, "Oh, I'm just gonna break here and get a picture of a bison."
Yeah, fuck whoever's behind me.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck whoever's behind me. And sometimes it's so bad. There's this one time it was so nasty. They dispatched a literal ambulance just to get traffic moving again. Where this ambulance would have its lights on and going, woo! And so people would be like, "Oh no, somebody's been injured." And so hopefully they'll either one, use a pull off, or two, get moving so they can find a pull off to use. But what wound up happening is it only temporary worked. So this ambulance started just doing loops up and down Hayden Valley in vain, trying to get these incapable people to move because they've never seen a bison before. And of course, I've seen so many bison that I'm unimpressed by them. I mean, like, I'll never try to spoil somebody's first experience in Yellowstone, but if you don't use a pull off, I'm going to get pissed at you.
Yeah. You should get eaten by a bison.
Yeah, you should get gored by a bison.
There you go. Better. They don't eat people.
Yeah, they don't eat. They just fling them into the air. But yeah, so there's this. So yeah, all that to say, I've driven through the park so many times. I've kind of lost appreciation for its beauty, as unfortunate as that is, and it's now just a workplace, and I get like. I get
that
really
sucks.
Yeah, I get really
because like the place I've gotten like that with it just been like shitty restaurants and warehouses, but like a beautiful national park. You're just like, man, I resent this place. We've been here so much. I couldn't imagine that. It sucks.
No, yeah, it kind of did after 12 seasons. 12 seasons was enough up there because it wound up being 4 times 12 is shit.
48.
Yeah, thanks. And so 48 is wow. I just shit. I had the answer there. I did.
Well, I know you're way better. You're way better at math than me.
Yeah.
Just to clarify for people, like this man does a lot of math in his population videos.
No shit. Yeah. So I spent 4 years of my life in Yellowstone, which is awesome. I'll never trade it for anything, and it was the best job I'll ever have. And yeah, the people were just great and stuff. But all of this to say that, like, yeah, like me, I got dull to the driving. And usually whenever I was slapped in a car, I would like to get it over as quick as I could.
Yeah.
And so when I'd drive to one side of the park to the other, I'd be like flooring it when no one was around. It was like, oh, it's I forgot the name of this one place, but it's this really rigid cliff. And it's like a super windy trail, and I just go flying down it, barreling at like a really high speed, just because I knew what was coming all the time. I was like, "All right, here we go."
Yeah.
Whoop, through Sylvan Pass, whoop, right? And that was one place where I took a piss once. I was driving down Sylvan Pass. That's the name of the place, and I had one hand on the wheel and the other hand on like a bottle. It was just. But there's this so the one thing that I mentioned to Boat already was there's this one time it was one of the bad reviews I got because usually I never get mentioned because I'm a background guy. I don't interact with people much, if at all, because I'm working on trees, I'm working on roads. Like, people don't talk to me. I'm in the bathroom doing electrical work on some light that's not working anymore, switching out a toilet. Like, I'm not out in the trails talking to people. I will bump into people and talk to them, but like, it's not a part of my job. But when I'm doing this pickup thing for people, where it's like, oh, the trekkers have finished over at Pelican Bay, you mind picking them up? I'm like, done. Drive to Pelican Bay, pick these guys up. And this one time, I wasn't thinking. I was being like a full retard because I was just driving back as if I was by myself. And so I was like going down Sylvan Pass because that Sylvan Pass was the last stretch before you made it back to the home base. And I was just like going, meow, meow, meow. And I remember consciously the adult leader in the front, it was a Boy Scout troop. The adult leader in the front had one hand dead gripped to like the safety handle above the door. And he was like kind of clenching his teeth. But for some reason, I didn't consider that what I was doing was probably one of the most terrifying experiences these people had. Because every bend, you were looking over this like steep, dreadful looking drop. But yeah, they left me a review saying that driver, you need to do something about him. And I felt bad about that. So like afterwards, I always took it slow and steady whenever I'd pick people up. But
Did you say a parent had to reassure one of their kids they weren't going to die? Or something?
yeah, that's right. It was like
don't leave that out.
My son that we were gonna be okay.
That was the part that got me. I was like, gee. It was like, I've drove erratic before, but I always just got dead animals in the back of my van because I have a weird job where I pick up dead animals from clinics. But if there were people, I don't know if I don't know. It took me a while to get numb to the route, but you know that's why I can relate to you, man. You just forgot. You're like, I gotta do this drive again. You're like, oh, screw. You weren't even saying screw those people. You just weren't thinking about those people back there.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that I was just like, this is how I drive Sylvan Pass. And nothing's gonna happen because I've done it 100 times. And instead, something did happen. But it was really funny because my boss came over and he was like, "Hey, Drew, you got to take it a little bit more slow." And like, "Oh, what's up?" And it's like, "Yes, I'm a tall leader from that trek you picked up." He said that it was probably one of the most terrifying drives of his life, and especially because I passed somebody up at one point. It was probably around Yellowstone Lake. I went zooming around somebody, and of course I had to go 80 to do it. It was at a really sharp turn too, but I was like,
you said double. You said there was double yellow lines.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to pass people, and you're passing slow ass RVs and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Because RVs are just the most horrible thing to be behind. I after that, as I said, I was like, oh yeah, I probably should be more careful when I have kids and customers in the back of the van. But
yeah,
was my silly driving experience. But man,
so what about your silly bear experiences?
Silly bear experiences. So I think I may have had 2 bear encounters on my last season I worked there. The first one I know was a grizzly bear. And I was out checking all the campsites, making sure that fires were disposed of. There's no garbage and trash and shit. Because bears have a really... So one of the things I do up there is I'd actually do a bear safety instruction course with a friend of mine named... shoot, I was just about to drop his old name.
Drop a fake name. Let's call him Rusty. I was about to say Rusty. What the hell? I swear it was on the tip of my tongue. I'm having a stupid coincidence. Oh my god! But coincidence. But I was really about to say I don't know if you could hear it, but you can go back and hear it.
I heard you go because his name is very close to Rusty. I'm not kidding. So that's why I changed it to that. But he one of the coolest things about Rusty. And this you could probably figure out his real name, is that he actually made it into National Geographic when they did one on Yellowstone. Here's this awesome centerfold picture in the middle of the magazine of this fish and game guy over this tranquilized bear in a cage, and that's Rusty. Yeah, I said the fake name we're giving him. Okay, good. Yeah. But I had to pause there because so I think I said to Boat before we started is I'm so used to saying people's first name and last name when I talk about them, but here I'm actually going to try to have a little bit of respect for people.
Well, yeah. They'll never see this, but but still.
And also, none of these people I talk about ever do bad things. So even if I do give their right name, it's I'm not telling them, I'm not saying anything about them that's bad because all of them have done solid things.
Except for Rusty. What did Rusty do?
Except for Rusty, yeah. I draw pictures of bears doing shit for him. And so in his office, he had a bunch of these drawings of bears punting goats off of cliffs and things.
I thought you were drawing erotic bear stuff for him. Rusty's fucked up, man.
No, Rusty likes when I draw pictures of bears knock or pushing doorbells and things like that.
Well, maybe it's his thing.
Yeah, bears hijacking cars from people and smashing them into other tourists who are taking too long. Like it's that kind of thing. Yeah, bear safety. We tell people about what kind of bear they're looking at and what you need to do. Because black bears and grizzly bears are very different when they decide they're going to get hostile. Really, the first thing we teach is how to identify if you're looking at a black bear or a grizzly bear. And really, the two most important things is like the the ears, if they're round or pointed. If they're more pointy, then it's a black bear. If they're more round, it's a grizzly. If they have a hump on its back, it's a grizzly. If they don't, it's a black bear. And if the claws are massive, then it's a grizzly bear. And if they're very small and not very visible, then it's probably a black bear. So there's a few things you can do. There's more than that, but the color has very little to do with it because there's some black bears that are very brown looking. There's some that are very blonde, kind of almost reddish looking too.
I just know grizzlies are just fucking huge.
Yeah. No, there could be some big grizzly bears and there can be some big black bears, but yeah, generally, if it's a bigger bear, chances are it's a grizzly. So I was out in these campsites checking and making sure everything was fine. There was no garbage being burned in the fire pits or whatever, and that they didn't leave any like shampoo or things behind that bears would smell because bears have really strong noses, and if they smell like trash, they'll come and they'll eat it. And bears also have an amazing memory. And so they'll turn this campsite into a stopping ground whenever they're through the area. And so I was near Shoshone River. I was at a campsite. It was a more open fieldish area. There's still a ton of pine trees, but they're very spaced, and you had a very wide range before before your view was obstructed by plant life. And I was actually with my sister because she came up to visit, and she was helping me clean up these campsites. It's funner doing things with somebody else. And I didn't have my phone or any kind of picture or camera. I didn't have any cameras or phones with me at this moment because there's no cell service when you're out there. So you just never take your phone with you. And there's this grizzly bear about like a half an acre away. Like it was not far at all. And it was just hustling like really fast. I saw it and I kind of like froze for a second. I was like, oh crap, it's a grizzly. But then I was like, oh, it's just going on its way. Because grizzly bears, they're like, if you don't give them a reason to interact with you, they will not interact with you. They're kind of like big dumb dogs. And so I was like perfectly relaxed and chill. I was like, oh look, a grizzly. And then I turned to my sister, I was like, you got your phone? And she did, so she got a picture of it. So I can ask her for that picture because it was pretty cool. But that's one grizzly bear encounter I had. The other one that may or may not have been a grizzly bear. So I was in the Tate Daniels building, which is a 2-story building we have in our area. And it's just it's one of the nicer buildings in the entire park that I worked because it's one of the newest buildings. And so it has like a carpet, it actually has insulation in the walls. It's it doesn't have a bathroom. So if you're staying in the Tate Daniels building, this is a thing that everybody who stayed in the Tate Daniels building, you're not supposed to sleep in the Tate Daniels building. It was not designed to be residential, but because it was the nicest building, people were like taking the storage closets and like putting beds in it and shit. But when you have to take a piss in the middle of the night, you go over to like the second story window and you just open it up and you just piss right out it into the road below, and it was very authentic. I was in the Tate Daniels building that night, and I remember distinctly I was playing Mountain Blade because you have to install everything you want to play when you're up there on your computer before you bring it up because there is no internet, there's no cell service, there's nothing. But I was playing Mountain Blade.
No internet. That sounds kind of nice.
Oh yeah, it was really nice because it was like you had to make up all your inside jokes. Yeah, it was like everything was very genuine. Of course, there'd be like my last year I worked there. There was a bunch of women who showed up there in their early 20s, and they were all like TikTok enthusiasts. And so I don't know if they were installing just like a bulk amount of TikTok before they'd come up, but like it was really funny because, well, shoot, one of the funnier things out there is when you hear like an old ranger like quote something that's kind of mainstream because you're like going like, wow, how did that reach your ears? 9 times out of 10, they're quite literal because they have they have no like internet access, so they don't get the memes and all that stuff. So it's like they just say what it is. But I remember there's like this old ranger guy with a white beard, and he saw like a dog running by, and he was like, "Oh, whose doggo is that?"
Okay, I was yeah, no, he's deep into the internet memes then because or maybe he's just, are you sure would he get that from the internet or that was just fun? People said doggo before that, right?
Yeah. I guess people said, I don't know, because I've never really heard. I know people started saying doggo on the internet, like it's oh,
Yeah,
look at the doggo.
maybe it wasn't that. I was
So,
just gonna say old people are vicious with those Facebook memes. So no, yeah,
oh,
you
true,
never know.
true.
They'll whip those out on you, like trading cards, and you won't know what's going on because you're like, I can't relate to this. But like, or actually, no, they might be memes that you saw like 15, 20 years ago, and they're like, look at this hot one, son.
We did have an old guy whose name was his name was actually just a BS name. I actually don't think I know his real name, but we just all called him Shotgun Bob, and he was some old Vietnam vet, and he was very crotchety and stuff. But I am lying. We did have just the smallest amount of internet, but we only used it for weather forecasts and like official business. Like if you use the internet to look at Facebook, you're gonna get chewed out, kind of thing. And so Shotgun Bob was in charge of like the armory in the area. He's this old crotchety guy, and he'd go to the office and he'd just look at Facebook, and he like destroyed the bandwidth that we had. And so it was like usually so like you get a search and rescue guy comes out, he's like they want to do like a search on like a river to see if it's flooded or not, but nothing's loading because the internet's gone because Shotgun Bob wanted to look at Minions memes.
Fucking shotgun Bob. Jesus.
Okay, so Shuby's kid, he was shaped like a penguin. He meant well, but he was incapable of he was incapable of being helpful.
Because he was a penguin.
Yeah, he was a penguin. He was the protagonist of our region. He was just this really he'd waddle over to my boss and go, "Hey, Andrew," and Andrew would be like, "Oh no, go away." He was a good little kid. I mean, he was good as in he wanted to be helpful, but he just was incapable of being helpful. And so he got passed around a lot because people are like, "I don't want to work with him
He just
anymore."
fucked up.
And I think, yeah, I think he was only like 14. And I mean, only 14. I know some kids are really capable at 14. We've had some kids who've been like really young who like show up to volunteer, and they just put their whole heart into it. And it's like, wow, that kid is going
Yeah,
places.
a
But
good
then,
summer job. I wish I had that. I didn't get my first job till I was 18. I'm lazy.
shoot, no, it was, yeah, I started working there since I was, I think my first year was 13, and I never regretted it. It kind of ruined the rest of my public school experience because the friends I made there are friends that I still have to this day. Like
That's good.
the people you meet there, probably some of the most genuine people you could meet. And I I said, as I said, I had my high school experience ruined because I'd go back to high school, and it's like my friends I'd had for the last 4 months were like rangers and firefighters or like army veterans and stuff like that. And then I'm
Men.
going, yeah, and then I'm going back to like high school bullshit where it's like, who cares about prom anymore? My friend is one of my friends is becoming a monk to work in the Vatican. True story, but I don't know. He dropped off the face of the planet. So here's something I want to ask you if you've ever experienced.
I had a monk friend too.
Have you ever known a guy, and then after you finish like talking with the guy, he just kind of like drops off the face of the planet and he's pretty much dead, like because you'll never hear from him ever again.
Yeah, I mean, just friends drift away. I've talked like I was saying, like, yeah, I actually have one friend who is going to be a monk, and like I've actually heard from. I haven't hung out with him in a couple of years, I think, but my other buddy who I talk to quite frequently, got to hang out with him recently, so he didn't drop off the face of the earth completely. But no, I've definitely had that with some people. I mean, like, was that the same person you're talking about? Like,
Yeah.
became a monk? Because I guess monks just do that. They have to disconnect and find religion. They can't talk to anybody unholy.
Yeah, so that guy's gone. Another guy who showed up really impressed everybody, and then he just disappeared forever. It was in the contracting part of things. He hitchhiked his way into Yellowstone from Washington State. All I know is he came from Washington State. I don't remember his last name. I just remember his name was Campbell, and I can say this guy's name because nobody's ever going to find him because he's gone. And the only other thing I can say about Campbell is he looked just like Peter O'Toole from Lawrence of Arabia, if you've ever seen that movie.
I have not, but I imagine just a Campbell soup You say Campbell? Well, that's what he's gonna look like the rest of this conversation.
He also looked like the guy on the tomato sauce cans, Paul Newman.
Maybe. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, he looked a little like that too. Hitchhiked his way in and was like, "Do you guys need somebody to fill in this role?" I forgot what role he took. And they're like, "Yeah, actually." He's like, "Great, I could do this, this, and this." And they're like, "You're hired." And so he just started working with us. He was a really cool guy. He was very thoughtful. He didn't sleep in any of the barracks. The guy literally slept underneath a bench in one of the regions that he worked in. I think he worked with. I think he worked at the boat with the boats. I don't remember who he worked for, but he was like there's canoes and there's rowboats and stuff.
So did he even work there? It doesn't really sound like it.
He worked there. He was hired. He got paid, and while he was working for us, he got a job at a ranch down the road as well called Cross Sabers, where he started working as a baker for them at the same time working at like the marina. And so he's like jumping between these two locations. And it was just he was one of the most ridiculous guys ever. And then when the season finished, he hitchhiked his way out of the park and nobody's ever heard of him ever again. So,
well, I mean, he hitchhikes. Yeah, he probably got killed. Or he's just in a dungeon.
Yeah, he's probably dead.
Alive. Sex trafficking. So that'd be sad.
Yeah, that would be. You ever pick up any hitchhikers?
Hell no, dude. I've seen a good amount on my driving. Like, dude, they're always fucking sketchy, like just homeless looking people. And it's just like, no thanks. Or, yeah, a few times. Sometimes, they're always, either like really distraught looking elderly women. Like they're like maybe they're not elderly. Maybe they just did a lot of drugs, so they aged their face.
So they look.
But yeah, or like just sketchy like looking dudes who just look like they'll rob you. I was like, I'm not. Yeah, I've seen it quite a handful of times, and even like in like a public area, and you never let someone in your car. I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know. I think you said you picked up some hitchhikers, haven't you?
Yeah.
Crazy.
The best one I ever picked up, it was like near Mammoth Hot Springs, and it was on my way to West Yellowstone. And he was this old Native American guy. Like you could tell just by like he had no facial hair, and he had this long white mane of straight hair that ran right past his shoulders. And I remember as I was driving by, he was like leaning back and he kind of like he mouthed the words "come on," like in a friendly sort of way, like "come on, pick me up," right? And so I pulled over and I let him in. And he was like, I forgot almost most of the things he told me, but he was going to Washington State because that's where his tribe was. And their chief had died. And so they needed the elders to like assemble so they can elect a new chief. and so this guy,
hey, don't laugh at that culture. It's serious roleplay.
It's so ridiculous because it was like he was giving me so much insight. Like I'm glad I picked him up, and I remember I was talking with him for like the whole like hour or so drive back. And he was just telling us about like his life. And of course, we're just going to drop him off at West Yellowstone because it's closer to his destination. We weren't going out of West Yellowstone. And so we made it there. And he was like, "Hey, do you have like $20 for like food?" And I was like, "Sure, man." So I gave him $20 for McDonald's because that's where I saw him going the direction of. And then before he left, I was like, "Hey, sorry, I never asked your name." Right? This old, wise Native American man who was almost like a spirit turns to me. He says, "My name's Bobby," or something like that. I was expecting like running elk, or like white bison. Instead, his name was like Bobby Majig or something.
It just turned out he's white or something, or he's part of like a mage guild. Like it just sounded like he was Native American.
He's really going to a LARPing session. Darn. Oh man, that's probably the best hitchhiker I ever picked up. All all the others have just been
mediocre,
semi-regular people. Most of the hitchhikers I pick up are like people who are going through the park.
Yeah, like it's a
Or,
little
like-
different. Like you're they kind of like it's not required. You're just kind of being a nice guy. Like and you're in like in a work vehicle, but like I don't know. Yeah, every time I've always been in a work vehicle, but my job like you're in a realm where like that kind of makes sense for you to pick up hitchhikers.
Yeah, because it's like it's a little bit of customer
Yeah.
service, as weird as that sounds.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I because I'd pick up guys and I'd drop them off at like Pahaska and stuff. I'd be like, have fun. And then but yeah, sometimes there's these two guys I picked up. The only reason I remember these two guys is just because they left their trash all over my Jeep when they finished.
What a bunch of dicks.
I know. It was like kind of gross because it was like a can of dog food because they had a dog with them.
That's what you...
So the dog ate the can of dog food, and then they left the can, and then they put like a hot dog in it.
That's worse than I was imagining. I was imagining like you ever have those friends who just like have like layers of fast food like at like the bottom, like so like when you step like you don't touch the bottom of the car, you just touch fast food like boxes and wraps.
Yeah. Oh man.
I just don't get that.
Paper layer.
I don't have the cleanest car, but like anytime I have trash, I just take it out with me once I'm done with the car. I don't leave just all right, fuck this fast food. I'm gonna throw it in the passenger seat. I don't know. That's
For real.
gross, man.
No, that's get that McDonald's memorabilia into the garbage.
Burn. All right, well.
Burn it. But like, yeah, what a shoot. No, that was about it for hitchhikers because, as I said, nobody else has really stuck out to me. The best one, as I said, was just picking up some old wife.
He had the best story.
He did.
Doing it for his people.
I know. So I guess we can go into the Mafia video.
Video. We gotta talk about the process. People want to hear about the process of this video. I had high expectations. I said, all right, Tim, 5,000 views. And it still hit it. You know, maybe the Mafia crowd will find it. But it's performing about what I expected, like shit. But you can't look at it like that. You just gotta keep on moving, as they say.
For real. The longest process I'd say for this video was actually playing the game.
Yeah, for sure. 30 hours.
Because it just wears on you.
I was always just thinking about Mafia anytime I drove. It was in the back of my mind. Ready to go home and beat it. Like I think I've said before, it's just actually I didn't say in the video, but I haven't beat a game in a long time, and it was just cool to actually go through and do it, even though it sort of dragged on. But I think my thing with the video is I think we should have wrapped it up in like a 10 or 15 minute like thing where we actually kind of talked about the game in general overall. But I thought it was fun to go through and talk about the missions, just give our take on each mission kind of quickly. But like I don't know, I think it kind of ran too long.
Okay, yeah, I think the video turned out great, but I do think like my favorite part was the beginning. Yeah,
the first 3 minutes is like was where we're talking in general, but beyond that, it's like we're going into the story of like, all right, this is what happens. We're just telling the whole story of Mafia. So basically, if you're a fan of the game, you'll enjoy it because like, oh, here I can hear about this game again. Or if you don't feel like playing the game, then we can give you a recap. And then, but like if you're not interested in either one of those, you're just kind of like, why the fuck am I watching all this? I'm sure. But I don't know.
Because it's funny.
It's funny. Yeah. People like our stupid jokes about fucking Mafia and pizza.
Yeah, there's some comments underneath the video that were just like, "Hey,
that's the majority of the comments." Yeah, YouTube comments. I like you get less and less comments on videos at first. I'm like, oh, people who don't care you comment anymore. But like, I kind of look at social media like overall, and it's just like that's just how it is mostly. Like, so not saying the bigger channels still do get a lot of comments, but like it's just diminished over time because I guess. I don't know if it's the rise of like Discord and other apps, but people usually give their opinions there as opposed to like saying, "Hey, I'm going to tell you what I think right here in this public forum." That at least I don't like. I had a couple of friends like be like, "Hey, I liked your Mafia video," and like I'm glad they tell me that, but also I'm like, "Hey, man, put it on my YouTube channel so I can get that analytic." There's part of me like has like that douchey mindset, but I'm like, I would never actually tell them to do that. But you get what I'm saying is like there's less of that out there. So like it's like when you I don't know, it's like. You look at it, I'm like, oh, there's less feedback. It's like, I always say that. I'm like, I want more feedback on my videos, even if it's negative. It's like, fucking people just say something. God damn.
Yeah. No, it's odd how that is. I've had people ask me, they're like, hey, when you having a Discord? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I ever will, honestly.
Yeah, they're weird. Like, I mean, like I said, I've made a lot of great friends through it, but like, lately, I just look at it. I'm just like, ugh, I don't know. People you guys suck. All of you in there suck now. But so some people in there, yeah, they're just edgelords, and I'm just like, this is lame. And then Usually they're just talking about stupid shit, but I don't know. It doesn't always bother me, but sometimes I look at there and I'm like, ugh, I'm just like, I don't want to see this, you know.
I don't
Right. But it's not the worst thing, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there ain't much to talk about. I had a lot of fun making the Mafia video. And that's all that matters. I didn't expect it to do great because it's just like an old fucking. It's not even like an old like loved game, but like I think it was never probably super popular, but it's not like too obscure, I guess. Like middle ground of notoriety, maybe.
No, it did pretty well. See, the thing is, like, yeah, it's attached to like a very popular. I guess Mafia is, of course, not even comparably close to the success that that like GTA has, but still, it's a title that most Bambinos these days know because of its 2 and 3, I guess.
Yeah, that's where I was just in the video. That's where I found out about it. But it's a real funny game though. The game is, but that's how a lot of old games you go back and play it. Like I just started playing Daggerfall. That game's just cracking me up just because it's old, haha, glitchy, and just the graphics. But maybe that's what I'm into, man. New games are looking too realistic now.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the old.
Where it's like you can have more stuff to do, but a little less graphics. See, I remember I was it's fun when you can occasionally talk to your parents about video games. But I remember I was telling my dad about like Space Station 13.
How'd that go?
And I showed him a few videos. His response is like, "Why do we have so many graphics? Because it seems like the less graphics you have, the more stuff you can do."
I think your dad's, has better take. My dad was just probably, I think if I show him the game I played the most, he's like, "Why are you playing that stupid looking Atari game?" or something like that. He just says something like I realize that's why I'm just so like, I'm just, my girlfriend just like, it's like, "You're cutting," or what she calls it. She says smart ass or whatever. I'm like, I guess that's why my dad he just belittles everything. I guess I try not to do the same thing. So everything sucks. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, psychology. Sorry. Wait, I said don't get too personal. Now I'm analyzing myself. What were we talking about there? We were talking about Space Station. Our dad's opinions on Space Station. But no, I get what you. But like,
yes.
Yeah, that's how most of my conversation with my dad. He's like, "Oh, I haven't played games since Pac-Man." Is your dad like that, or has he actually played games?
He's played games. I actually sometimes I'll play. I'll when I'm visiting him, I'll set up my computer in the living room and hook it up to the big screen TV. And I'll play like I can't do first person games. First person games like give him migraines if he sees them. Like he gets motion sick. I tried to get him to play Return of the Obra Dinn because I thought he'd like it, and it made him throw up. Like he had to go to bed early. Then he threw up later that night. So he cannot do first person games.
He threw up.
However. Yeah, he can't do Wolfenstein. He can't do Team Fortress 2.
Is it too violent, or is it too motion sickness? What is it?
It's just motion sickness. Like he can't deal with like first person perspective games. And he liked watching he liked watching me play Red Dead Redemption back in the day. And he was like, I really liked that game because he liked the story and stuff. I tried playing Red Dead Redemption 2. And the one mission I was on when I played it in front of him was like the one where like Arthur Morgan gets drunk and the camera's swaying all over the place. And so he left the room and I felt awful. I was like, of course, this is the mission that had to happen. But my dad, I think he's going to get Stronghold, like the original Stronghold Crusader. Because I played it a few times in front of him, and he always seemed to get pretty invested in like the resource management, and that's one of my favorite games. So I'm fine with that. I've never played online for Stronghold because I've heard nothing but bad things. Because apparently Stronghold Online is just like, watch me do a glitch that you've never seen before.
Just wreck you, okay? Yeah,
I
never played that. It's RTS, right?
Yeah, it's a real-time strategy where you manage resources in a castle. I always enjoy it. It's not the most polished game, but playing single player, especially when you get thrown in a situation that you're outnumbered and out-resourced, but you manage to like overcome it, just is always satisfying to me.
Oh yeah, no, I do have this game. I played Stronghold Extreme Crusader for 6 minutes back 2017. I did not give this game a chance. Sorry, Tim.
No, that's
I
all
just
right.
wanted to check. I was like, I feel like I know a little bit about this game. I had to look.
It's all good. There's so many RTSs out there. A genre of RTS that I tried to play and I just couldn't get into it is like I don't remember what the series is called, but I know there's several like it where it's like there's giant mech machines. You got to harvest some kinds of crystals,
Mech Warrior? Or is it
and
not Mech Warrior?
oh no, it wasn't. It
That's the
wasn't
only one I
MechWarrior.
know.
It was like an RTS. Yeah, but it was like there's like 6 of them out there that are different brands. Where it's like, oh yeah, giant mechs that you got to build, and you got to harvest crystals and produce units and things. And
Gundam.
I'm just like,
It's Gundam. Yeah.
yeah, stuff is Gundam stuff, and I was just like, I'm not
What is
really into it.
Gundams are robots fighting in space. I don't think it has anything to do with crystals. All right.
I think Gundams are just giant robots that are controlled by people.
Oh, kind of mechs.
Yeah, so yeah, they're mechs, but like I think they're mostly people
Yeah, they're
shaped.
Asian shaped mechs. Yeah.
They're shaped like Asian men. Um, no, it's a fun, ridiculous. RTSs have been in trouble though. I don't think there's been a good RTS for a very long time that's been new. Project Zomboid was fun when I finally was able to
Oh,
join.
yeah, well, I want to play that more with you. I was just fucking tired. But that game's
No, I
hard.
don't
It's
blame you. I
hard
was
to get
getting
going
tired
with that
too.
game. Like once you get a good melee weapon and like maybe a gun, you don't always need a gun. But you get it going. Get a nice bag. Hit the world.
Yeah, shit. The thing that really gets me is you got to have like good skills and stuff in order to get away with a lot of things, and you got to grind a lot in order to get good, or you got to read a book or
Yeah,
something.
especially with shooting, like in that game, like your character has no aim at first. You have to shoot, like miss a bunch or something to like finally get hits, and then eventually your character gets aim. But then once you die, you reset. It's hard as fuck.
Yeah,
I'm still in love
no,
with it because of the map. Because as much as I love game maps, shit, and the fact that it's where I'm from, I'm like, damn, it's a cool ass game. But oh yeah, I made
that
videos
is
about
really
it
cool.
and went on about it.
Yeah, no, that was a good video. I remember that one. Oh man,
Thanks.
it's weird how like some places take place in real locations and they don't really give it much justice. Uh,
Yeah, they did what they could.
I know a guy. Yeah, I know a guy from Hong Kong, and he said he wasn't too happy with Sleeping Dogs map of Hong Kong. Of course, Hong Kong's freaking huge, but
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know.
I think the only game
Sometimes
I
you
can
can't.
think of is like there's like some like racing game where they're like or not racing game, but like it just I think it's Truck Simulator where they're like they actually add everything in road
Yes.
wise.
Okay. When I was a plumber, there's this carpenter I work with every once in a while. His name was Jim. He lives in Idaho. You're not gonna find him because there's so many Jims in Idaho. But Jim would be like, "Yeah." He was like he was an old tank driver. That's what he used to do. He went to Fort
You're
Knox,
narrowing it
and
down.
his
We're gonna find
yes, I
them.
am. They're gonna find him. Good luck finding Jim. But he'd go to Fort Knox, or he was at Fort Knox, and they're like, "Yeah, this is the Abram. It's going to be the tank that you're going to be driving." And then, like the sergeant who was like giving the initiation to these guys was like, "Don't lick it." And because he said, "Don't lick it," somebody in this group of 30 guys just felt obliged to see what happens when you lick an Abram. And so they're all looking at the Abram, and one guy licks it, and his tongue sticks to it because it's a cold day. And he's like, "Uh-oh." And so like everybody's like gathered around this guy who like got his tongue stuck to the Abram. And the sergeant comes over and says, "Your name is now Tank Licker." And the rest of his time at Fort Knox, this guy was known as Tank Licker. But that didn't happen to Jim. It was in Jim's group of guys. But
no.
that's my favorite story from Jim. But
Fucking tank liquor.
he'd tell me every time I was in. So he was like probably in like his 50s, but every time I was like with Jim working on a job and we're hanging out while we were working, he'd be telling me about Truck Simulator, where he would be like, "Yeah, they almost have my house in it. They have a building nearby my house." And it's amazing, and it's amazing like how detailed this game is because there's a restaurant that's nearby that actually is in the map. Like it's incredible, and so He was telling me about that all the time. It's funny because that's the second guy I know who played Truck Simulator. Because back when I was a trucker working for another company, there was this other guy named Danny. Good luck trying to find him. He he told me that so he worked as a trucker when I was a trucker there. And what he liked to do in his spare time was play Truck Simulator, which I just couldn't understand.
That pissed me off when you told me that before. I'm like, God damn.
Because it's like, dude, you do it for a job and then you do it for recreation.
Yeah, all day you drive. It's like no other interest. Like, that must be the most boring person to talk to. It's like, you have other things to talk about. I mean, maybe if you could listen to stuff and learn things. I don't know. Or if he just drives in silence. I don't know.
He just drives in silence in his room after he drives in silence.
He doesn't listen to music. No audio books, anything.
He's just hunched over his plastic wheel. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the top of my head.
Check out his channel, by the way, if you haven't. He had some early success there, and then like now they just dropped off for him.
Yep, that YouTube curse,
right?
Or whatever.
Like it was, I was like, come on, keep it going, and then was one of the videos. I know one of the videos was the population video. Was the other video like the mod video, or were they both population videos that got a lot of views?
They were both population videos that got a lot of views, and then I was like, and then I did a mod video, and then it dropped off. I had one mod video that did really well.
Okay.
Where I talked about Age of Chivalry, and that one's probably my favorite video that I ever did. The GTA San Andreas one is also is probably like that, and the Age of Chivalry 2 video. Those two videos are my favorite videos. Everything else I've kind of done because I'm like, I got to keep up the momentum. I feel really bad about my Gmod and my Half-Life video because I made those two on very short notices because I'm like, it's been like almost a month since I've made a video. I need to make something. And so I actually made the Half-Life video in 2 days.
And they got like did well.
Yeah, and it's my best performing video of all my videos.
Right.
And
this shows as we said with YouTube, just never know.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't care and like, well, I was telling you like it was kind of bad and good advice with like, I guess I don't know either way you look at it was I just kept saying don't keep doing population videos unless because like that's just what you're gonna be pigeonholed into. But like
exactly.
But even because like but if you keep doing them, then you're gonna be able to ride that gravy train for at least like who knows how long, however long people want to keep watching population videos. Which if no one knows, like he would just go and like look at the maps and like it wasn't like he would just wouldn't say about 1 million people live here. No, he'd like look at all the buildings, do a census, and like count. Like it was a fun concept when he told me about it initially with San Andreas. I was just like, yeah, dude, fucking go for that. And now he's like going through with like Red Dead and stuff. Is there still any other maps you want to do or games?
Oh, I want to do Saints Row 2.
Okay.
Though I'm thinking I'm going to get the Saints Row in under 10 minutes because a lot of Saints Row is like suburbs or like shopping malls. So Stillwater will go by really quick. And oh man, I know it's like I probably have to go over the premise every time for every video in case I get new audiences.
You could sum it up in like a sentence. You could just say, I'm going door to door and counting the population. And most people who would find that funny would get that. They would get it. I mean, because just when he just pitched to me, he's like basically saying he's going to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, just going to do I made a video about GTA and San Andreas with the burglary side mission, and that's where I mentioned him telling me about it. He was like, I'm going to do a census in GTA San Andreas, and I was like, that sounds funny. And then I think that's when we started talking about burglary. I was like, yeah, you can just sneak in people's houses and go in there and count them that way, because sometimes there'll be people in there yelling at you or they're sleeping or whatever. But he didn't do all that. He did something wiser, because that wouldn't have worked. You can't enter every house.
No, yeah, and then also I think the residents might be different every other time. I don't know.
Of course, yeah, they're not randomly generated shit. But San Andreas is a cool game. I think it's a cool idea, and you just gotta keep trying stuff. But especially, I think it'd be interesting with when you try history videos, because you were just I joined. Last night he was in a Discord call with some of our friends, and he was just going like telling this like amazing story about like the fucking whole like China, like some dynasty during China. I think this fat guy named Don. What was his name?
Hey, you remembered his last name was Dong
Don
Zhuo, and now
Juan.
he stole the emperor.
You said it so many
Like,
times. I was like, I couldn't fully remember it.
but you remember the first. You remember the first part, and that's awesome.
Fat guy came in and took shit over as a rebel. But like, Nathan, you want to give a sum up of that? Like, I came in mid story and he was just telling it so well. I think I said something to him like, I'm like, are you Chinese? You know this history really well, because like I said like I could not describe like some event from American history as well as you described. He was going in on this. I'm like, you studied this? Like, how do you know of all that? Actually, I didn't ask you that.
Shit. Okay, so I I was I don't remember how I even first came across the story, but I remember I was just like, this is a fat guy and apparently he stole the emperor. And I just start, and of course I don't mean to be weightist, obesist or something, but fat people always amuse me.
They're
It's
jolly. They're fun.
and they're like Santa Claus. And so there's this big old chunky guy, and he like hijacked China. Yeah, no, it was like Dong Zhuo's paradise, because I was looking at like all the dynasties that ever existed in China and all the kingdoms and things. And there's this like period that was just like called Dong Zhuo's paradise, and it lasted like 3-4 months. I was like, this is hilarious. What is this? And, and it was like this period where this big fat guy hijacked the emperor, and I was like, okay, I need to read the whole story. And it's so silly and ridiculous in comparison to Western things that I just had to remember how things were. And I've told the story so many times that I've turned it into a stand-up routine.
Yeah, you were
Because
making like sound effects and voices and shit. It was just
oh yeah, no, and I left out some of the jokes too, because there's this one where I'd like say like everybody in the castle says Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed, but my voice continues to get higher pitched, and the highest pitch is for the eunuchs because they don't have any balls.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like the generals, Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed. The soldiers, Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed. The servants, Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed. The concubines, Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed. The eunuchs, Dong Zhuo is going to get us killed. And so that was something I usually do, but yeah, that was as high as I can go, sadly. But
yeah, no, okay, it was great. I'm thinking, yeah. No, don't
no.
Or it was he had who was this guy that he what was it again, like he sent into battle and he was just fucking everybody up. It was Shin.
Oh, Lubu.
Yeah, I was gonna say Shin Yang or some shit. Stupid.
Oh no, kind of close. You're getting it. Chinese names are pretty much just two little short names.
Right. Well, I guess that's Americans too, isn't it? Sort of, mostly.
I guess, or like, well, American names can be like Carmichael or something. Well, it's like Chinese names, they're like usually one syllable, but like Yuan. Oh, I guess Yuan is like 2 or 3.
Or it's like as opposed to some languages, it's just like such long, like ridiculously like I couldn't even like. I guess Russians maybe they have long names. I don't know.
Yeah, like Skavinsky, Skavar, or something.
That's not that many syllables. But anyway, what were we talking about? Fucking
Oh shit!
I wanted to hear about this guy, his like warrior, like the fat guy's main man. That he
oh yeah, Lubu. Yeah, that guy was intense. So like, whenever I talk about Lubu, I mention the White Death, who was this Finnish sniper who killed 500 people in the Winter War, and now he's considered the most deadliest soldier in human history. But because there's so many sources and because it's so old, and nobody can really agree what happened in this period, that's why usually people don't agree that Lubu was the most deadliest soldier. But there are historical figures where it's like attributed people killed by Lubu. It's like it's just a good laundry list of like actual generals and soldiers and shit. And then they like there's some people who's like, yeah, Lubu probably killed like 2,000 people in battle. And
yeah, but like I think you were explaining it's probably exaggerating.
Yeah, it is probably exaggerating, but it's like still though it's like it's
he's still like
he's killed.
Yeah,
people.
Like
we know that
people,
guy.
People saw him and they were like, oh shit, they probably cowered in fear, so he's able to like take a few more people out just because it's like. People knew who he was, and they just, they're like, ah, and like they flinched when he like swung at him. I don't know.
Yeah, and then as I said, there's like this one guy who gained fame because he got laid out by Lubu and he survived.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a good story. You said like they found him
There's
in like a
this
pile of dead people or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a group of infantry that Lubu just massacred. And there's one guy in this group of infantry who survived the beating. And everyone's like, look, that guy survived a beating from Lubu. And so they turned him into a hero because he didn't get killed.
Not knowing, I
Like
think there was some guy you say just pulled out the village, probably.
yeah, he was like some woodcutter who was like, I'm gonna go get that Gongzhua, and then he ran off and like joined in on a battle, and then like Lu Bu like just massacred him, as well as like a bunch of other guys. And it's like, look, this nobody, he got a beating and survived. He must be blessed by the gods or something. But that's one of my there's so many ridiculous things, and of course, as I said, there's so many sources. You got to take them all with a grain of salt. Well, it's like in the West, things are much more chill. Well, it's like this China period, like people were being turned into like literal like gods on Earth kind of thing because of like, oh, they're just ability like Lu Bu.
Yeah, no, I can. Yeah, I'm trying to absorb as many fun historical anecdotes as I can
Oh shit!
because it's just I like hearing about that shit. It's always the only time I've ever read it. It's just like old ass history books or something like that. And
No, that's where I read most of my stuff is like history books too. And the fun thing about history books is sometimes they mention things that you, even if you search distinctly for it online, you will not find any information.
yeah, because maybe like they really pulled out some deep ass references or something, or maybe
Exactly.
experience. There's lying. I don't know. Yeah, because like I'm really not much of a reader though. Like I read a book about these people who built a airfield in the middle of a battlefield. So
Oh, I bet those were the CBs.
Seabees. I don't know. This is like a.
CBs in World War II?
I think this was this during it was in Yugoslavia.
Oh, okay, not
I
CBs
don't know.
then.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know. But this happened in Yugoslavia. I think so. Yeah, they built an airfield and they like got like 500 men out. That's the only thing I read that, and then fucking this shit about. I'm only like I'm not a terrible reader. Are you a good reader?
I if it's something I'm interested in, I read it very slow because then I want to make sure I retain the information. If it's something I'm reading casually, I can get through it pretty quick.
Yeah, that's my problem. Is I try
Um,
to retain the information. Sometimes I'll read a paragraph and like I'll be thinking about something else. Like, oh, I gotta reread that. So I feel like I'm a slow reader for that.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're very similar in that regard then.
Yeah, well,
Where it's like,
I was just said this book I have on my desk that I barely read, The Bonanza King, is just about a guy who I think got rich during the gold rush. So like shit like that, just like hopefully obscure stories. I like to hear about stuff like that.
oh yeah, no, for real. Because there's people on YouTube who just like find historical subjects that nobody's talked about yet, and they make a video about it. And like I don't know if you've ever seen Count Dankula's Mad Lad
I
series.
think I've seen some of those. Yeah, well, I know who Count Dankula is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he does like a series where he just talks about like people in the ages that kind of stood up for themselves or did something intense, be it good or bad.
oh yeah,
And
I got. He did one on. Sorry to interrupt, but he did one on New Jack. I think that's the one I've watched.
yeah. So that's something he does, and he gets a massive audience off of it. And sometimes I think like I should do something like that where I find like a story that not a lot of people know about and like tell it. And actually, one of the videos I am working on, I have a script written for it. It's on the Battle of Lewis, which was a medieval battle that was pretty well documented, all things considered. Because the older you go back in history, the less people who tend to write about things. And the Battle of Lewis was a battle that happened in England in 1267 that was very well recorded. And I want to do a video on it because I find it kind of amusing. Because, long story short, the royalists were fighting the barons. And the royalists at the Battle of Lewis showed up. They had more cavalry, they had more knights, they had more soldiers. So on the Mountain Blade playing field, it was like they had them outnumbered like by a fifth. So if you did the auto resolve, you were probably going to lose.
Never.
Yeah, you got to take to the field because then your surgery score doesn't seem to work anymore. And you do the auto resolve against 6 looters and you lose a knight. That's always bullshit. But so yeah, it was on the battlefield. He had the king, the royalists. They outnumbered the barons. They had more knights. They had more archers. They had more footmen, and the barons had the hill, but the barons also were a little bit more disorganized, and they had a lot more levy and a lot more bowmen, and not as many knights. And so it was a battle that they were going to have to take on a whim that they were going to win. And what wound up happening is the same Edward Longshanks from Braveheart, the villain of Braveheart, if you've ever seen it.
I have not.
He was
I mean, it's one of,
okay.
that's one of those
That's fine,
like that's
because
one of
it's
those
not the
popular
most-
movies I need. Something like that I need to watch. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, it's an all right movie. In terms of being authentic, it's not the most authentic. Like a lot of the armor and a lot of the equipment isn't accurate.
Well, Mel Gibson.
The Scots look like they're Jacobites. Yeah.
What
Mel
does he
Gibson.
yell in the movie?
Freedom.
Oh yeah. There's no
Yeah.
yells in the movie.
Yeah, it's an okay movie, but in terms of the visuals, like what the gear and stuff looks like, it's not very accurate. But the same Edward Longshanks, who's the villain in that movie, he is kind of the failure of the Battle of Lewis. Because what happened is, so he took charge of all of the cavalry, all of the men at arms, all of the knights, all of the mounted sergeants, and he recognized Londoners. And the year before the Battle of Lewis, his mother was in London on a barge passing underneath London Bridge, and a bunch of merchants and burghers and townspeople saw her passing underneath, and they just started throwing garbage and shit at her because they didn't like Edward. And so when Edward saw a London banner, he took all of the knights, all of the horsemen, and he charged after the Londoners, and they left the battlefield. He pursued them and only them, and leaving the king without any backup, without any horses, without any knights. And like Edward was gone from the battlefield for like a few hours, chasing down all the Londoners. And in that time, the barons took advantage of this and captured the king and decimated his forces. So I want to do it in better detail though, because I'm learning the backstories of a lot of the characters who were at Lewis, and a thing I find I'm most excited about is that all of the information I've gathered, I contain information that no other source ever mentions. So I may have the most fullest story for the Battle of Lewis that I have read so far, and I'm really excited about it because it's like I may have something. Well, I will have something new to present on YouTube at least, because I watched everybody's YouTube video on the Battle of Lewis. There's only like a few videos.
Yeah,
and
you looked into it. Yeah, you're gonna find that shit. Yeah, down.
Exactly. So everybody's YouTube video on the Battle of Lewis is like they're missing information that other people mention. So I'll have the most fullest, and so I want to do it. And of course, I'm gonna have my illustrations.
Yes, with your own drawings. That's what would bring the eye in.
Yes, so I'm gonna like draw like the retreat, the Londoners. I'm gonna draw the equipment. I'm gonna talk about what the normal soldier at Lewis looked like, what the normal knight would have had, stuff like that. So yeah,
people are gonna enjoy that shit. Hopefully.
Thanks. I hope so too.
I don't know. I don't know what else. I was gonna ask you about drawing. What influenced you? What's your influences in drawing, Tim? You have I like your art style. I don't know, and it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like kind of rough around the edges, but like gets good looking still.
Thank you. No, it's very rough. It's kind of become what it is very organically. I am bad at holding on to old things. I've actually been throwing away a lot of old drawings lately, but I have been scanning them for archive reasons. But none of them are like super old. But I know it's just been a very, very long process of becoming where it is today. And I try to take more influence from like reality and stuff. I want to get better at backgrounds and perspective and things because I feel.
Oh, I really liked your backgrounds, man.
Oh, thank you.
I think you shine with those.
Thank you. They could always be better, but no, thanks. I'm glad that they look good in their current state.
If I ever make that prison video, I definitely want those prison backgrounds.
Yeah, I want to make a few more of those.
All right, well, that's on my long to-do list. It's gonna be a long video. No one's gonna watch, but it'll be fun to make.
I think so. It's gonna be great. What's another background or drawing related thing? I know people overwhelmingly compare my work to Quentin Blake, which he's the artist.
Look that one up. The first Google. I'll look it up.
Like whenever somebody if 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say
I could see it.
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah, it's very scratchy. It's very
You definitely do your faces different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Our faces are very different, but like the how the characters are drawn, they're very scribbly looking, and I take it as a compliment, but also it makes me think like I could be better. Another one I get.
I mean, yeah, you always could be, but also you can't let people change your shit.
Another guy I've been compared to is called Bill Pete. I'll send you the spelling on the last name.
Oh, well, I thought that's how I would have spelled it.
Oh, awesome.
You think I can't spell Pete?
It's two E's in a row. Sorry, Pete. I spelt it wrong when I sent it to you. And this one, I'd like to be a little bit more like if I could.
It's almost a little dark. It's like a mature Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad. It has good texture, I think. Like I like how he does his plants. But yeah, that's another guy I get compared to a lot. Besides that, I get the odd comparison to somebody I've never heard of before, and I have to look them up, and I look at it and go, I can see where they're coming from. But it's fun. It's fun when people tell you what they think you look like and compare your art to somebody that they're familiar with.
And hopefully they at least throw in a compliment. They're just like, "You look like this!"
Yeah,
and just leave. Okay. Nice observation, dick.
Yeah, no, it's always a little. It could be a little disheartening if you don't think the guy's work is very good, but
yeah, I've had that happen with YouTube. Oh fucking man! I don't know if you heard that. My microphone sometimes goes doo-doo. Sorry.
People compare you to something.
Yeah, I couldn't even think of any. I'm just like, yeah. I was like, no, it's not me.
I'm trying to think.
Well, it's an hour and a half in. I mean, if you got something else to say, might wrap it up though.
Oh shoot, I'm trying to think if there's any final things. So it's like if you have to edit.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Edit and crop some things out. Cut out some stalls or pauses or whatever. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Yeah, I'll probably go through this.
Shoot. I like how you do your stop motion thing. Like, what program do you use?
Oh, just Photoshop.
You just use Photoshop,
and then throw it into Premiere. Like, I really think there's an easier. I think if I use Flash or Adobe Flash, it'd be a lot easier. But I just haven't learned that program, so I just do it this way, and I think it kind of gives it a little kind of older looking look, I guess an older look to it. If I use Flash, it would look a little more modern, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know, and you might lose a bit of your charm. Because you got to keep scaring one of our friends who doesn't like the stop motion.
Oh, this next one she's not gonna like. It's just I was reading the script to my girlfriend. And it's just mostly just a lot of cartoon violence. It's just creepy stuff. I'm gonna actually bought some visual effects shit. It's definitely not gonna be. I decided I'm gonna do a short. I need to make a Patreon post, but I'm gonna do a short Space Station video this month because I've been meaning to play more Space Station, and that's something easy I can get done in a week or so. I've someone done before. Easy video, but this stop motion video is gonna take a few weeks. But also I gotta wait on the props. But I bought a fake hand because I'm gonna there's a finger chopping scene.
Nice.
And also I bought these I bought 2 of them, these makeup kits where it's you make embedded glass in your arm.
Oh dang!
So this is gonna have a little bit of a budget, but it's not gonna be nothing special. It'll be cute, little Halloween thing.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The other night after you left, I tried doing my boat bomber impression, but it's not there yet. But I know I could do living in Kentucky can be hard or something.
Living in Kentucky could be hard and gay or something.
Yeah, that's right. Because you have a certain cadence to you that I know I could because Norm Macdonald and all those other people, they have a way that you how I describe impersonating people. It's almost like a code that you have to break where you're hunting for that one thing that brings it all together. And for Norm, for me, it's kind of like doing that little bit of a nasally voice. You kind of go like this, and then also the opportune pauses when you talk about something, and that's kind of like
you got a good Norm. I can't do Norm.
So,
but like I've definitely probably took some of the delivery from just listening to him over the years, a couple of like past few years. Like I got into him like a year before he died. So when he died, I was like, damn man.
Yeah, it happened really fast. Like I didn't know he was sick, to quote Norm, but shit, yeah. So I was like trying to do a boat bomber impression last night, but I couldn't pull it off. I need to crack that code still. So I need to find out about your cadence, and then I can begin doing an impression.
At least you tell me as soon as I leave. He's like, all right, now I gotta bust out this impression. I've been practicing.
Yeah, it's like living in Kentucky can be gay.
Is that how you living in Kentucky? I guess it's like a mixture of just me talking and the space station video.
Exactly.
Oh, but wait, no, never mind. I've done a video about the summary of Kentucky. So yeah, there you go. It's rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember what that summary was about.
Kentucky or something.
I was probably just like, I was like, oh yeah, they fuck your cousins.
Yeah, but shoot. So there's a good little final bit, I guess. Thanks for having me on. Honored to be on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna actually get guests or fucking me. You can just be my co-host or the host.
Shoot, yeah.
I could be the co-host. We could start a new one. I don't know. I don't want to do them more often. I just don't know who to invite on or talk to.
Yeah, no, you know some pretty interesting people.
There are a bunch of weirdos in the Discord that are probably just lying about their lives. I don't know. Like we do. We're just lying.
We're all just lying, trying to make ourselves more important than we actually are.
Yeah, this is a call out. If anyone actually listens to the end, then you're invited on the podcast. If you listen this far, you're invited. All right.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye.